We got some very interesting tech choices that we need to talk about. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that serial spell button so you guys don't miss out more on us. So coming out of YCS Columbus, my friend ended up playing against a duelist that was playing Sky Striker with Serial Spell. And he thought it was the coolest thing that he'd ever seen happen because they activated Engage, did Serial Spell, and guess what? They get all of the bad cards unloaded out of their hand. They get basically a search for a linkage, a draw, a search for another linkage, and a draw. Alright? Isn't that actually kind of cool? Now, my friend has told me, Robbie, you should play this. My actual opinion on this is Serial Spell is a cool tech choice. I like the concept and idea for it, but this is purely gimmick. All right, and I hate to say that because I like the idea of what you're able to do with it in Sky Striker. It's cool, but is this something that I would want to approach as a potential 3 of in the deck? Are we bulking down that much dedicated space into the deck just to, on an off chance, I see Serial Spell in combination with Engage? Because in every other scenario, that card's just going to feel like a massively dead draw, and you want and need your deck to be as consistent as it actually can be on those potential powerhouse turns. I don't want to be drawing into a board breaker hand here and I'm not really able to, break the field or something to that degree because, oh no, I drew Serial Spell. It's a purely interesting gimmick in the case of being able to go first. If your opponent ashes you or does any of that other fun stuff, well, you're going to be crying yourself to the bank because you're going to be depositing absolute sadness within that account. And it's going to be kind of sad. Now, I want to talk about the Archfiend's uprising or usurpation. And of course, this includes Archfiend's playtime and the Bone Archfiend. So basically, this is a multiple card inclusion package being built into the Red Dragon Archfiend deck. Now, why is that? Well, Bone Archfiend just so happens to be one of the little monsters that you want to be able to get into rotation for your deck. So basically what ends up happening is we can use the Archfiend Quick Play spell card to be able to set an Archfiend trap card from your deck or graveyard, and it can be activated this turn. So we're able to get Archfiend's playtime up and running, which allows us to special summon a level 7 or lower Archfiend monster from your hand or deck. Now, that's the only rest of the text you care about this, which automatically bones you into Bone Archfiend, and congratulations, you've got your level 4 established on the field. Now all you got to do is find a tuner monster to be able to do your job, which should not be any problem whatsoever because Mr. Bone Archfiend is probably going to be providing you with those tools to be able to get your deck initially set up, and you should be good to go from there. I like this little topic of being able to build around the Red Dragon Archfiend deck. The Red Dragon Archfiend deck honestly has had some of the coolest little ideas that you can kind of toss around in the deck building sake. You're never going to know what the most consistent things are going to be, but it's enough to really give you some consideration and go, oh, that's really cool. And obviously we're going to be getting way more support for this. When we do get the Red Nova Burning Soul, that card is going to make this deck a whole lot dumber in the way that you're going to be able to actively use these tech choices to be able to make your deck a lot more consistent. So I'm looking forward to that. We also have to talk about the return of Triple Tactics Thrust. Thrust returning back to the playfield was actually a pretty welcoming change. I'm very happy to be able to report that, Thrust returning back to the game was needed. We just came off of a format where Thrust had pretty much just rolled off into obscurity, not because Thrust itself is bad, but because a lot of the tools that Thrust was providing really didn't actually work in the benefit of players wanting to explore and the tools that you could use to make thrust work. Now you're heading into a format where, once again, you want to look for board breaker cards. You want to look for these powerhouse cards that can work. And obviously, Sky Striker was still playing this to be able to toggle into engage. That was always something that deck was naturally doing. But now you're looking at thrust and you're going, oh, hey, we can toggle into like Illusion Gate to be able to board break, get a Monster Reborn scenario kind of going here. Thrust also can provide a branded player with quick access into a branded fusion to maybe allow them the chance to get their board set up in a more effective approach. This is why Thrust is a card that bounces back and forth in these formats. It's because its applications are determined by what the rest of the sphere of the game actually is kind of allowing you to do. And anytime you do see Thrust kind of fall out of the format, you can anticipate that it will eventually rotate back in, because it's one of those cards that is just very powerful. It provides you with a lot of strong tool access, and it only is as good as the tools that it allows you to build into the deck and the ones you bring with you. Obviously, Rageki's a good card, but if you don't have it in the deck for you to thrust into in that situation, that thrust could go through the entire spell pool. It just doesn't work. Prohibition. This card has been pretty interesting kind of look at in terms of, your calling tech choices. What happens when I declare Fallen of Albaz and suddenly, I'm invalidating Fallen of the White Dragon, no Albaz is coming down. I'm not worried or having to deal with, the most powerful part of the Albaz strategy with a single card being declared. Sales ban is not something that would really replace the use of Prohibition right now, which is kind of interesting because, you had decks that were playing Sales ban for a completely different reason. You're using Sales ban as a method to stop Droll and Lockbird from stopping you from getting the chance to set up your game plan. Now, Prohibition can kind of work in the same way, but it goes over multiple turns. But the tools that Prohibition actually hits are more long-lasting. And God knows, in a lot of these matchups, there's not going to be spell and trap removal that, you're going to have to worry about, unless you're playing against Radiant Typhoon, where, there's going to be an MST lurking around a corner. But that's not a matchup that I could see myself wanting to board in, Prohibition for. Though, calling Mystical Space Typhoon on my turn going first does seem like a really funny interaction that the deck really wouldn't be able to recover from initially, which is just, it's kind of funny, but I do like the way that Prohibition is kind of presenting itself as a side deck trend right now. Just on the off case of, hey, this card's job is to be able to lock you out of, trying to do Albaz shenanigans, which, okay, cool. We'll take those, right? Just quick little shutouts to win games is always going to be very welcome. And then we have Super Poly. Super Poly really, really, really has just become a massively broken card right now. And it's not just because, hitting a sea monster of Theseus and absolutely wiping up a field of, tuners in the Cool Tune matchup is crazy. No, it's because Branded is able to further go beyond its actual power scaling, and it's able just to suck up even more of the small field and go even more crazy with the tools that it's already got. And honestly, that's kind of crazy. The Dragon that Devours Dogma is just a giant vacuum cleaner as it is. And imagine, just being able to have the U-Bell style of fusion where you can suck up every effect monster on the field and just be able to, shut out the game like that. That's pretty crazy, honestly. But where we're sitting right now, we're looking pretty good, honestly. I like the tools that we're seeing. I like that, there's a lot of good other tech choices presented within this format that's actually looking kind of fun, You don't have to, be locked into any one strategy to do something. And You know, you got things like Serial Spell that's looking pretty fun. You know, you got lots of good challenging cards that are rotating in and out of the meta on tech choices. That's exactly what the format needs to do. So please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. Are you excited to see some of these cards working in overtime? You guys have a good rest of your day, all right? Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.